It was a colder morning than usual in Bikini Bottom. The coral didn't sway as playfully, and the streets had fewer jellyfish and more litter. A gray tint hung in the water, not from pollution exactly, but from something else, like the city itself had gotten tired. SpongeBob sat at his kitchen table, staring blankly into a half-eaten bowl of kelp flakes. Gary meowed from across the room, but even his usual chirp sounded quieter. There was a knock at the door. It was the mailfish, dropping off the latest issue of Fancy Living Digest. The magazine thudded to the floor, heavier than usual, like it was soaked in something more than water. SpongeBob picked it up. On the cover, a smiling fish couple, draped in pearls and lounging in a gold-lined hot tub on a private island. The headline read, "Live like kings, how you can buy the life you deserve." He flipped through the pages. Lavish homes, luxury bathtubs, butlers, seafood feasts. Not a Krabby Patty in sight. His pupils widened with each glossy photo. Moments later, Patrick burst in, wearing a cracked visor and mismatched socks. "Hey buddy, wanna count sand again?" SpongeBob didn't look up. "Patrick, have you ever felt like we're stuck?" "Stuck?" Patrick said, scratching his stomach. "Like in jelly?" "No, stuck in life." Patrick blinked. "Patrick, we need to change things. We're wasting our lives. We could be rich. We could have fancy living," SpongeBob said, shaking the magazine in Patrick's face. Patrick gasped. "Like, buy stuff we can't even pronounce?" "Yes!" Outside, a distant siren wailed. A boarded-up store blinked its final open sign. SpongeBob stared out the window for a second longer than usual. "Let's become entrepreneurs," he whispered. The next morning, SpongeBob and Patrick stood proudly at their new chocolate stand, a crooked duct-tape table parked on the edge of Conch Street. A sign read, "Chocolate bars, get rich or melt trying." SpongeBob straightened his tie. "Patrick, today marks the beginning of our journey to financial freedom." Patrick saluted. "May the chocolate gods bless our hustle." They practiced their sales pitch. "Hello, sir. Would you like to buy some chocolate?" SpongeBob rehearsed with a grin. Patrick followed with an enthusiastic, "We're selling chocolate." Their first customer opened the door and screamed, "Chocolate!" at the top of his lungs. He chased them across town like a madman. They barely escaped with their dignity and several unpaid bars. Undeterred, they continued knocking on doors. An elderly fish scowled. "What are they selling?" "Choco-late! Choco-late! Choco-late!" She slammed the door. "We're off to a strong start." SpongeBob lied as they tiptoed away. The next customer was smoother. Too smooth. A slick, trench-coated eel welcomed them into his home. "Chocolate sales, huh? Cute. But if you boys really want to earn, you've got to upsell." "Upsell?" SpongeBob blinked. "Sure, don't just sell candy. Sell dreams." The eel leaned closer. "Sell them chocolate insurance." Patrick gasped. "We could insure the chocolate against chocolate accidents." The eel grinned. "Exactly." Inspired, they returned to the streets, now offering everything from chocolate protection plans to rare anti-melting upgrades. Their pitch evolved into a wild, breathless scam of premium chocolate services no one asked for, but some shady residents actually bought. Money began to trickle in. SpongeBob's pocket bulged with coins and sea bills. Patrick built a briefcase out of napkins to hold their earnings. Yet something felt wrong. The customers weren't smiling. Some stared at them too long. One jellyfish wrangler paid with an envelope that smelled like algae and oil. SpongeBob pocketed it anyway. By sundown, they were back at the Pineapple House, counting money by candlelight. Outside, a storm rumbled. Patrick yawned. "I feel like a chocolate king." SpongeBob tried to laugh, but it caught in his throat. He looked at their sales map. Half of Bikini Bottom was crossed out in red. They hadn't been selling chocolate. They'd been invading. Something crept into SpongeBob's mind that night, a thought too quiet to ignore. What exactly were they selling anymore? The next morning, SpongeBob awoke to the sound of Patrick hammering something against the kitchen wall. "Patrick, what are you doing?" "I'm building a vault," Patrick said proudly, revealing a cardboard box spray-painted gold and duct-taped shut. The word "Monies" was scrawled across the front in ketchup. Their chocolate business had exploded. What started as a silly idea had become a full-blown operation. They were averaging 70 calls a day through the hotline. An old shell phone they'd pried off a pay booth behind the chum bucket. They were delivering bars by the crate. SpongeBob had even made Patrick a badge that read, "Chief Financial Officer." At first they were thrilled. Who wouldn't be? Coins jingled in their sleep, bills fluttered in drawers like moths. But with the money came other things. Stress, suspicion, fear. SpongeBob hunched over their chocolate ledger that morning, running numbers with a shell calculator. Patrick, we're losing track. Some customers are ordering more than they should. Some addresses don't even exist. Patrick shrugged. Maybe they're ghosts. SpongeBob blinked. Ghosts don't pay in gold teeth. That's when he noticed it again, through the window. That same figure in the raincoat standing motionless across the street. No expression, no movement, just watching. SpongeBob's smile faded. That's the third day in a row. Still, they pressed on. Desperation became innovation. They created bundle deals, deluxe collector's bars, and limited edition chocolate defense kits. One customer claimed he needed 100 bars for a ritual. Patrick designed a bar shaped like a pentagram. It sold out. They started getting strange payments. Jellyfish venom, a jar of sea urchin eyes, a briefcase full of clams that smelled like battery acid. SpongeBob asked no questions. He just locked it all in Patrick's cardboard vault. And then the note came. Slipped under their door with no postage, no name, just a message. I can help. You're in over your heads. Meet me tonight. Come alone. Alley behind Glove World. SpongeBob held the note for a long time. The paper smelled like rust and pipe oil. The handwriting was too neat, almost machine-like. Patrick begged to go with him. SpongeBob refused. You stay here. Watch the vault. Patrick nodded. I'll guard the money with my life. That night, Bikini Bottom felt heavier, like the water itself was thicker. SpongeBob made his way to the alley behind Glove World. He didn't say a word as he left. He didn't come home until morning. When he did, his square pants were torn, his eyes were bloodshot, his iconic red tie was gone. Where were you? Patrick asked. SpongeBob didn't answer. He walked silently into the kitchen, opened the cardboard vault, and stared. The money was gone. Did the chocolate gods take it? Patrick asked. SpongeBob's voice was hoarse. Number, we're not in control anymore. From across the street, the man in the raincoat was still watching. Only now, he was smiling. SpongeBob didn't speak for hours. He just sat at the kitchen table, watching a single chocolate bar slowly melt in front of him. Its glossy sheen dulled into a sticky puddle. He didn't eat it. He just watched. Patrick tried everything. He danced. He made chocolate sculptures. He even brought out the emergency jelly bean cannon. Nothing helped. By late afternoon, a knock echoed through the pineapple house. 3 slow taps, then silence. SpongeBob opened the door. The man in the raincoat stood there, half shrouded in mist. He wasn't just soaked. His coat seemed to absorb the moisture, like it had lived underwater too long. His voice was dry and quiet, a strange contrast to the dampness around him. I warned you, he said, stepping inside without waiting. Patrick peeked from behind the fridge, gripping a spaghetti spoon like a sword. The stranger sat at their table and placed a worn black briefcase in front of him. It clicked open. Inside were chocolate bars, but not like theirs. These were wrapped in dark matte foil with no logos, no ingredients, just a tiny wax seal shaped like a squid. These, the man said, are what real players sell. SpongeBob stared. Who are you? I was like you once, young, hungry, thought I could build an empire with a smile and a sweet tooth. He leaned in. But chocolate is more than candy. It's currency, it's leverage, and it's dangerous. Patrick raised his hand. Wait, are we in a chocolate gang? The man ignored him. You boys sold to the wrong people, he continued. There are buyers in this town who don't chew. They collect, they test, they melt, they use it for things you wouldn't understand. SpongeBob felt a chill crawl down his back. What kind of things? The man pulled out a photo. It was blurry, underwater, but the shape was unmistakable. A large chocolate bar fused with wires, gears, and something pulsing red at its core. Patrick squinted. Is that a chocolate bomb? The man closed the case. Not quite, but you get the idea. Silence fell. I can offer protection, the man said, for a cut of your profits. In exchange, you stop asking questions, you follow instructions, and you forget everything you thought you knew about candy. And if we say no? SpongeBob asked. The man stood. Then you'd better hope your next delivery isn't your last. He paused at the doorway. Midnight, 39 Algae Street, 2 crates, no questions. Then he was gone. As the door clicked shut, a strange cold settled over the room. Even the air felt heavier. SpongeBob clutched the melted bar with trembling fingers. Patrick, what did we get ourselves into? Patrick looked down at their vault, now empty except for an old receipt from the bargain mart. I think we're dessert, he said. Outside, the rain began to fall harder, but it wasn't a normal storm. It sounded deliberate, like something bigger than a storm was coming. and it knew their names. SpongeBob and Patrick loaded the crates just before midnight. The Pineapple House, once cheerful and bright, now looked like a bunker. The windows were boarded up with spatula handles. The front lawn was covered in melted chocolate spills that had begun to attract jellyfish. Not the friendly kind, these had glowing stingers and a buzz that sounded like static. 2 crates, SpongeBob whispered, tying the final box shut. Exactly what he asked for. Patrick nodded. Maybe after this we can go back to selling chocolate for fun. SpongeBob didn't respond. He wasn't sure there was a way back. They wheeled the crates through the empty streets of Bikini Bottom. Not a single other fish in sight. No lights and windows. No boats on the road. Just them, the moonlight, and the soft creak of rusted wheels. They arrived at 39 Algae Street, a warehouse on the edge of town, half submerged in black water. The windows were painted over. A rusted sign read, "Delivery entrance, no refunds." "Should we knock?" Patrick asked. Before SpongeBob could answer, the door creaked open. Inside, dim lights flickered over a massive room filled with chocolate. Piles of bars, vats of syrup, conveyor belts long abandoned, and machines, half-built, twitching, humming with strange energy. None of it made sense. Waiting at the far end of the warehouse was the man in the raincoat, but he wasn't alone. 2 other figures stood beside him, faces covered in burlap masks stitched with chocolate logos. One of them carried something that looked like a chocolate injector, only it wasn't filled with anything sweet. "You followed instructions," the raincoat man said. "That's good." Patrick wheeled the crates forward. "We didn't peek." The man nodded. "This is the last step. After this, you're done." "Done?" SpongeBob asked. "Done with the business?" "No," the man said. "Done being you." Patrick blinked. "I don't get it." The masked figure stepped forward. SpongeBob stepped back, and then suddenly the lights cut out. Darkness swallowed the warehouse. All that remained was the soft, unmistakable sound of foil being unwrapped. The lights flickered back on, but something was different. Patrick was gone. SpongeBob stood alone in the vast warehouse. The crates had been opened, their contents already gone. The man in the raincoat was nowhere to be seen. Only the 2 masked figures remained, now still as statues facing him. "Patrick!" SpongeBob called out, his voice cracking. "Patrick!" No answer. He turned in every direction, heart pounding. Footsteps echoed behind him, but when he spun around, no one was there. The air smelled like scorched cocoa and copper. He ran toward the door, but it slammed shut on its own, locked. SpongeBob's breathing grew shallow. "This isn't about chocolate," he muttered. "This was never about chocolate." The masked figures finally moved, each slowly turning their heads toward him. They raised their gloved hands and pointed behind him. SpongeBob turned. A television screen buzzed to life on the far wall. The footage was grainy, but clear enough. It showed Patrick tied to a chair in a dim, dripping room. He wasn't scared, just confused, a faint smile on his face. "Is this a surprise birthday party?" Patrick said. Then the feed cut out. SpongeBob stepped back, stumbling. He reached into his pocket, his emergency jellyfish whistle, but it had melted, like everything else. The door finally creaked open behind him, and the 2 masked figures stepped aside. SpongeBob didn't look at them. He just ran. Through the alley, through the streets, past the closed stores and flickering lampposts. He didn't stop until he reached his Pineapple House and slammed the door shut behind him. But something was wrong. The vault was open again. And this time, inside wasn't just money. There was a note. "One more delivery. Just one. And he comes back." Beneath it was a chocolate bar. Just one. Wrapped in wax. Still warm. SpongeBob sat at his kitchen table, staring at the lone chocolate bar on the plate in front of him. It didn't look special. It looked like any of the hundreds they'd wrapped and sold. But this one felt alive. It pulsed faintly in the dim light like it had a heartbeat, like it was waiting. The note beside it read, "One more delivery, just one, and he comes back." SpongeBob hadn't slept. His eyes were red. His uniform was still damp from the warehouse, stained with the ghost of Patrick's voice. He didn't know who they were or what they wanted, but he knew what they'd taken, and he knew what they'd left behind. He tried to make sense of it. Why chocolate? Why them? But there were no answers, just symbols, whispers, deals made in alleyways, and contracts sealed in sugar and ink. At sunrise, he made his choice. He left a note for Gary. "Don't wait up. If anyone comes looking, tell them I quit." He wrapped the chocolate bar in thick cloth and zipped it inside his jellyfishing backpack. The address wasn't even an address, just coordinates carved into the wax like a warning. The location led him beyond the reef, past the kelp forests, into a trench so deep that light barely reached it. He swam down for what felt like hours, until the water turned black and the pressure pressed against his square frame like a vice. There, waiting in the gloom, was a figure. Not the man in the raincoat, not a fish at all. Just a shape, a silhouette. It held out a hand. SpongeBob said nothing. He just handed over the chocolate. "Where's Patrick?" he asked, voice barely more than a bubble. No response. The figure unwrapped the bar. Inside was something glowing, a deep violet light that shimmered like oil and bled into the darkness. Then everything went white. When SpongeBob woke, he was back in his pineapple house. Everything looked normal, too normal. The chocolate crates were gone. So was the vault. So was Patrick. No one in Bikini Bottom remembered any of it. Not Mr. Krabs, not Sandy, not even Squidward, except SpongeBob and the mailfish. Every week, without fail, the mailfish drops off a letter. Always sealed in black wax. Always with no return address. Always smelling faintly of burnt sugar. And SpongeBob never opens them. He just burns them, one by one. If you enjoyed this expanded look at what if the funniest SpongeBob episode had a dark ending, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more what if scenarios. Let us know what other SpongeBob questions you'd like us to explore next.